Our next speaker comes all the way from Rimby, Alberta, Canada. Brenda Schoepp is a 2012 Nuffield Scholar from Canada. Brenda has a number of roles, which I guess could be best summarised as being a professional advocate for agriculture. And I'd like to welcome Brenda to the stage, please.
Good afternoon, friends. It's an absolute pleasure for me to be here from Canada. The picture you see on the screen is how I live my life 8 months out of the year in a tremendous amount of snow. I'm a farmer, a lady farmer, and I do work in partnership, first of all, with my father and now also my husband in central Alberta. My program, or my topic of discussion, was the development of mentorship programs for women in agriculture. And through that process, I had the privilege of traveling to date to 12 countries. It'll be 18 before my report is done, making 158 different farm visits and reviewing 60 papers on the subject of mentorship. In addition to that, we did something a little different. Because I'm not looking at any sort of technology or anything, it was important that when I knew I couldn't go to the world, that I brought the world to me. So what I did is I launched a website survey, very simple, through SurveyMonkey. We had 3,900 women contribute from 8 countries worldwide. And the age of the ladies that contributed, that were actively farming, ranged from 14 years old to over 70. So that tells us that there's a tremendous amount of interest in agriculture and a tremendous amount of engagement all the way through the process. I think that one of the things that's really important to do before we start is to just talk about what mentorship actually is. Mentorship is not coaching, it is not consulting, it is not teaching leadership. Mentorship is the drawing out of every skill and possibility that lies within an individual. It is going deep inside, and it is an unconditional support of the individual's journey to growth. It is to liberate. It is to empower. It is to inspire. It is to engage. It is to permit the person to be everything that they were meant to be. And to do that, we have to do it in an unconditional setting. This picture may not look significant, but in that, because I am professionally mentoring in 8 countries now, here you see 2 women, one from Canada and one from the UK, which I've brought together so that they can share their ideas on farming and grow together as a team. What I'd like to do is share a little bit with you about what we found when we asked women around the world, and men, we had men contribute as well, boys and girls, men and women, what is it that you need when we put together a mentorship program for you? And because mentorship is, a little bit of a moving target and hard to measure, it's not something that we can just fund and check the boxes off. Because how you grow and I grow and what you need can be significantly different. What we found is that just over 50% of the women said personal growth was the most important to them. And the rest of that was taken up with business growth. But the overarching objective was the optimization within their farming units. So that tells us that women are as driven as men when it comes to optimizing farm production. And you most certainly heard it here this morning from our female scholars. What we need to do, though, is to always provide a safe platform for that to happen. And I did a review of all the national programs in Canada and the ones in the colleges and universities to see what it took to succeed or to fail in a mentorship program. And one of the key components to the survival and the success of a mentorship program is to put the onus on the mentor, not the mentee. And in many cases, when I introduce mentorship programs to agricultural colleges and so on, although there's a tremendous amount of flurry of activity or seemingly uptake at the beginning, as soon as they realize how much work it actually is, they back away and say, I will not commit to that amount of work. And like Richard said, if we're not investing in our young people, what are we investing in? Well said. So the platform or the processes and protocols to find mentees that understand that individual growth is at a pace that's necessary for them, and to understand their commitment and their role within the process is probably the most difficult portion of the launch pad in developing mentorship programs for boys and girls, men and women, but particularly for women. It's very necessary because in Canada, we haven't nationally recognized a woman outside of the Farm Credit Rosemary Davis Award since 1929. And so you can see that there's a great need for us to understand that we can't motivate and compel women unless we recognize them within the system in which they work. When we asked women exactly how it is that they would like to be engaged in a mentorship program, 50% of the time they said we want real face time, and for countries like Canada and Australia, where there's great distances involved, this becomes a cost issue as well. And they said the rest of the time, really, we can handle through technology, and that's very, very true. So we just look at really what we can and can't do within a system, within a region. So it does mean that even though I may work on an international basis, some of the greatest successes start first on a regional spin. Why is this important? What would drive me to look at the mentorship of women in agriculture from a global perspective? Women produce 90% of the world's food. And although in the Commonwealth we may just have trouble swallowing that fact, it is a reality. And as all journeys with Nuffield, as I went through it and I found things to help me with my farm and my business and had great engagements with many beautiful people, I also discovered that there are other overarching, larger issues to which we have to be aware within a mentorship program. I'm just going to address 3 of them today, but it'll help put into context the difficulty in implementation of a mentorship program that has long-term survivability within the system. The first is the land access issue. When we take a look at land access, and although in North America, most certainly in Australia, we probably see it as well, where we have consolidations of lands, the rest of the world is decentralizing. And for many, the access of land and the short-term lease is the number one handicap to the continued growth within agriculture. And if you think about it, how engaged are you with a 1-year, a 2-year, a 3-year, or a 5-year lease on property? And how engaged can women possibly be when they not only may be killed walking out to that field every morning, depending on their country, but most certainly there is no guarantee that there is continued access to that property the following year. And of course, credit, which is a different subject altogether, accessing capital, is another issue there. Secondly, we take a look at urbanization worldwide. Within 2 decades, 80% of the world's population will be living within 60% of the shoreline. And that creates a tremendous amount of challenges for all of us in agriculture. But it's had a huge impact for women in agriculture. Because women that were once partners as their men and their children moved to the city are now engaged in some activities that in countries that are below their caste, as an example, or they're we've seen situations because of the rising interest in proteins and so on, where women that were once in business have now become basically the mechanism to pull the plow. So some of the advancements within our world have actually stepped back the process of women in agriculture, and we need to recognize that urbanization, the severe urbanization happening worldwide, is going to affect you and I in every way possible, but it will also have a tremendous effect on how girls are seen within the regions and the countries that they're working. And the last, of course, is the issue of infrastructure. When we take infrastructure into account, most certainly in the countries where infrastructure for trade and marketing did not exist, instead of personal growth and business growth being right up at the top, those women said, give me infrastructure, give me trade, give me marketing expertise. And we can work in many areas of the world and discover that we have grown the individual, but they can't get their product to market, or they're inhibited in some other way that doesn't allow them to fully achieve their potential. At the end of the day, we want these girls and women to make money. We don't just want to, empower them, but we want them to also be profitable in the process as well. So what are the solutions, or what did I learn from my studies to date? And this picture is interesting. There's some people in the room. Our first Twitter came from Steve, who is in this photo as well. And it just shows us how small the world actually is. This is a group of young entrepreneurs, most of which I mentor. My average client base age is 32 years old. So we're working with young people, and here we are all collectively in a room. Quite by accident in a way. There's 3 scholars in that room and 3 applicants. So I think that in itself is a very powerful message. And it's all part of setting the stage to empower women, girls, boys, to move ahead with where they need to go in their lives. So setting that stage is very, very important as we move ahead. The other is to continue to educate through things like this and through other venues that allows us to bring the facts and the realities out there, and to educate about how important a mentorship program is to the communities in which we live. Because again, it is not about checking the box. You achieved this, you did that. It's about growing people from within. I was once asked, I was speaking to international women, and they said, is there anything you would do different, Brenda? And I said, yes, there was. I would have gotten a business coach, and I would have had a mentor. Because that would have made all the difference in the world in moving me to a different place in a very expedient way. I think it's important that we continue to inspire and to work with those around us. In other words, look at yourself in a mentorship role, and remember that we share the same earth and the same sky. And I think as Nuffield scholars, we recognize that. And that it's going to be important for me to take an active role in doing that. So I have launched not only a series of children's books about my travels, written in honor of my 5 grandchildren who wait patiently for me to come home. But most certainly I have also looked at what women need, and I went and I asked them. And I sent a note out to 400 women, and I said, if I took you anywhere in the world, where would you like to go? And I was expecting that we might drink a little wine on the seashore or something like that. And what the response was fabulous, because every country they asked for, I don't think I could even logistically get them there. They wanted to be pushed beyond their comfort zone. They wanted to dream the big dream and grow in a way that they've never grown before. So in 2015, we are launching the first ever Women's Agricultural Inspirational Tour, where I host women from around the world, and we go and do some really difficult things. Funding is always an issue, and we have to address it when we take a look at the whole picture. And 70% of women that I've talked to and that have responded have said that funding should come from some sort of regional or federal base. So developing a model that's, because we all know with funding they like to have a few measurables in there, so developing a model that's measurable is probably going to be very difficult to do, but we're going to work on it. And finally, and the reason this is up here, is because we need to have an urban focus. And so I have actually shifted out of my agricultural boots through the process of the Nuffield Scholarship. And I'm now looking at the development of urban programs specifically to get the message of agriculture and to them, and to also create an artery or a highway back and forth so that we're doing the right thing. Because in all honesty, the fastest change is going to come with the moral consciousness of women, and it's going to come through women who are consumers, as Natalie, as you pointed out so eloquently, and those we need to be on the same page and be having the same discussion with them. So we're going to launch some very intensive urban programs to talk about mentorship and to build women up across agriculture and urban societies. I've been truly honored to be asked to be here today, but mostly I'd like to thank those that were so generous behind me. There was some farming organizations, Lewis Farms, Pine Valley Farms, and Foothills Forage Association, and numerous small businesses in my little town that got me dressed and gave me a knapsack to go, that really supported what it was I was doing. But more importantly, I want to thank you. Many of you have honored me with the presence of coming to my home. Many of you have hosted me as I've traveled. And as a true Nuffielder, I just arrived with one engagement and let the rest unfold, and here I am today. And I really think that through that, you have been an encouragement and power to me. And without knowing it, you have mentored me in my journey to become all that I can be. You are a blessing and a gift, and I thank you for that.